Hello, this is Susan again, and welcome to part 2 of Coherence. In this video, I'm going to teach you a second strategy, a short strategy that you can use in order to detect coherence in your writing, and that strategy is looking at word chains. Anytime you write a paragraph, there's going to be connectivity between the different main ideas of the paragraph and the different types of information that you are building. And so what we're going to do is take apart this paragraph. So I'm going to go ahead now and put it into Microsoft Word. And then I'm going to be looking at the paragraph for meaning carrying units. And so when you're looking for words that are sort of meaning carrying, a lot of times it's going to be the nouns, sometimes the verbs, and not so much the smaller words like articles and prepositions in between. And so you're just going to have to kind of follow along to see. I'll start my first word chain with yellow. And so what I want to do is I'm just going to start with the very first word, which is markets. And so I can expect markets to be a topic that's going to carry throughout this paragraph. And what I want to do is, since markets was the first word that I deemed meaning carrying, I'm going to look for any word that I feel relates to this word chain. And so I'm just going to start going through, and the first word that I see that I feel falls into the same category as markets is price adjustments. You can see price adjustments, markets, both have to do with buying and selling. And then I'll continue on. Think about your local market. And so I'm going to go ahead and highlight that. You don't want to think so much about context when you're doing this. You just want to sort of ignore everything that's happening in the paragraph and just really look only at the words. So the next thing that I see is buy, and buyers, sellers. Again, we have buyers. I say scale down. Now here we are talking about scale down in relationship to appetite, but I'm ignoring all context and just looking at meaning carrying units and things that are related to markets, buying, selling, money. So something being offered for sale. And again, similar to what we talked about in K&O strategies, it's not an exact science, so when you're highlighting a word or a section of words, whether or not you highlight the four is up to you. And then we've got a rise in price, and a higher price possibly produces an outcome. We've got producers, offer, sale, and I think that's probably about it. So you can see we've got a number of words in yellow. Okay, and the next thing I'm going to do is choose another color. I like this aqua color. And I'm going to look for the next really meaning carrying unit. And we're talking here about, well, we have this word coordinate. This is our verb. Let's see what that belongs to. Markets, coordinate, decisions. And so I'm going to highlight decisions, and then I'm going to look for all the meaning carrying units related to decisions. So to think about something is related to decisions. Suppose could be related to decisions. Wanting to buy, I'm just going to kind of leave want to and leave buy in the markets category. Making choices is related to decisions. And let's see, plans is related to decisions. Okay, and then let's come back again, choose another color, my all-time default pink. And we have markets, coordinate individual decisions through price adjustments. You can see we have this word through, we have to see how, but there's no words there that warrant their own highlights. It's not until we get to hamburgers that we have another noun that's really truly meaning carrying in a different way than markets or decisions was. And so now we want to look for things to do with hamburgers, and you're going to see lots of hamburgers, hamburgers, appetites, even more hamburgers, 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 and hamburgers, and appetite, and lunch. Okay. So the last thing that you want to do once you've done this is just kind of go through and see if there's any other words that are meaning carrying that either need their own separate category or that you forgot in one of the word chains that you already did. And I'm just kind of looking through your for, that too few. Availability you could maybe put into choices, and so I'll do that. You could probably also leave it out completely, but people want to buy. Let's see, compatibility. We could probably put compatibility also into decision making. I don't think that that's unique enough to warrant its own category. You'll notice things like compatibility might be connecting words between two categories. For example, when you think about markets and making decisions based on markets, compatibility becomes a factor. And so, you could highlight it half and half, yellow and blue, but I think it fits best into blue. It's not bad to have words that fall into multiple categories because it just means that your paragraph is connected. And I don't really see anything else. Changes, I guess, we could put into decisions. Okay. So you can see this is a pretty healthy paragraph, and what you're looking for when you look at a pattern for word chains is for whatever word chains there are. Now, you don't want to have too few or too many. If you only have one word chain, that's not good because there's no depth to your paragraph. You don't want to have too many word chains because if you have 6, 7, 8 word chains, that means maybe you have too many ideas all packed into one paragraph. I would say 3 is a really good number. 3 is kind of the magic number. 4 is probably okay. When you start to get beyond that, unless it's a really complex idea, you might want to scale down the number of word chains, the number of topics that you're talking about in that given paragraph. And what you also want to happen with your word chains is that in order for a paragraph to be coherent, the word chains need to go from the beginning to the end. For example, we have this word chain in yellow. You'll notice there's a yellow in pretty much every single line. There's a blue in every line, maybe except for a couple. And then there's a pink as well in just about every line. And so this is a nice coherent paragraph. You're also looking at the alternating pattern of the colors, and that shows you that there's 3 main ideas in this paragraph. Well, not three knowns, but 3 pieces of combining information that make up the whole, and that they are in fact connected because that they rotate throughout the paragraph. So that just shows that in your writing you're connecting all of these 3 ideas in order to make one coherent point. Now, if for example you had this yellow chain end right about here, and then in the rest of the paragraph you didn't see any yellow at all, that would tell you that you switched topics or that you did not complete your idea. And so that should notify you to a problem with your coherence. Another thing that you might see is a word or 2 words that don't fall into any of the categories. So if I had an additional category here, for example, so if I add a sentence here, just kind of random, but another way to attract customers is to have good service, which is a way to attract customers, but you can see this paragraph isn't really about that. If I tried to categorize the topics here, I would have customers, which I could probably put into price adjustments category. Attract, I might be able to fit that into the decision making category, but good service does not necessarily fit into any of these categories. And so what I would have is a single word that's in a separate category, and that should be a red flag to you that this sentence might belong in a different paragraph or might not belong in this essay at all. It might be outside the scope of the essay and therefore you need to remove it. And what can happen sometimes is when you're writing in a stream of consciousness sort of way and you're not thinking about known, new, and old, information building, coherence, and word chains, is you get these ideas and you want to say them right now. But you'll find with good outlining and good pre-writing and then also doing coherence checks on your essays that you're going to end up with a much more coherent, much more understandable piece for the reader if you take the time to take that sort of stuff out. Sometimes an extra detail is just an extra detail when it doesn't have anything to contribute to the main idea of that paragraph.